Paulie Malignaggi here for Paulie TV. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe for all things boxing, all boxing discussions. Today, I'm going to get into one of these random discussions, one of these things that comes up on my mind with, obviously, it becomes a topic of conversation. It becomes a talking point for a lot of boxing fans and just in general, fans that we want to discuss, maybe non-current events at times, just boxing history and whatnot. So what is I get a lot of this, what is the fight that ruined boxing, right? People always like, oh, what caused boxing to not go into the mainstream or keeps boxing out of the mainstream or so on and so forth. We do know at one time boxing was very mainstream in the United States of America. In some countries it kind of still is, but in the United States it is not. So what's the fight that's responsible for this? People look at something recent, new age fans will say, oh, Mayweather Pacquiao definitely ruined it. Yeah, but it was kind of already out of the mainstream with that. If you go fighters that are a little bit old, fight fans that are a little bit older, they may say De La Hoya Trinidad, also a fight that was billed as some sort of fight of the century and wound up being sort of a big dud based on the performances of those two guys and how good they had looked going into that fight, De La Hoya and Trinidad. So it also depends. Also, some people might say Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, such a big fight, and the controversial decision that fight at Madison Square Garden where they deemed it a draw. Could be, but boxing has sort of always followed along in that path from before then, right? You've got the Ali era, the Leonard era, and the Tyson era, right? But what's the fight that really changed the dynamic? For me, it's going to be a little bit controversial, I'll be honest with you. For me, it's a fight that actually is one of the best fights in boxing history, a fight that people look back on fondly. But for me, this fight actually was the end of the old school style of boxing, the way boxing was viewed, and sort of turned the page into boxing being viewed in a little bit of a different manner. Slowly but surely, it started from this particular fight. It may surprise some of you, but my pick for the fight that ruined boxing is Ali Frazier I. People are going to say, what are you, crazy? That's one of the best fights ever. That's called the fight. Yeah, that is the fight. That was a great fight. I agree with you. Here's my reasons for why this fight is the fight that ruined boxing, and it started dying out from the mainstream slowly after that. Not granted, when I say slowly, that means Ali still kept it in the mainstream because Ali was such a polarizing figure. But slowly but surely, it fell out, like little by little after that point. Prior to that, boxing had always been a major sport, right, in the United States, and continued to be for a little while after that. But slowly but surely, this is where it started. For me, it was Ali Frazier I. The main reason for this is the emphasis that started to come down on the O after this fight. You had the undefeated world champion Joe Frazier against the undefeated champion in exile, which was Muhammad Ali. Obviously, we're not going to get into the political points of why Ali was in exile. We already know the history for those of us, because odds are, if you're watching this channel, you're a big boxing fan, so you already know why Ali was in exile and all of that. So it was a major fight. Some people still felt that Ali was the deserved champion, the champion in exile, as I said. Some people felt, well, you know what? He got stripped. Joe Frazier's the new kid on the block, and he was a major force, also undefeated. So you had this champion versus champion mentality. You had this undefeated versus undefeated mentality. And the fight winds up living up to a dynamic expectation. It was promoted based on things that it had never been promoted on before. The whole champion versus champion thing had never really been promoted before. The whole undefeated versus undefeated champion thing also had not been promoted before. So this was sort of a new method of promotion between these two terrific fighters, these two world-class fighters, these two future Hall of Famers. And then the fight, unlike a lot of the hype fights today, winds up living up to the major expectations that had been set before it. It becomes a terrific fight. People still remember it fondly. People that weren't alive, like myself, are basically trained to understand and know that this was one of the most amazing, not just fights of the century, but also experiences of the century, events of the century. It was this boxing match. And I think ever since then, the goal, the agenda has been for the promotional entities, even for the TV networks, has been to create this kind of fantasy situation where you have this amazing promotion based off of undefeated versus undefeated, champion versus champion, and then it lives up to the expectation with such an amazing result for a fight. And, we know now, obviously looking back, with hindsight being 2020, here we are 50 years later. we know that creating that kind of scenario is very, very difficult. You've got to jump through a lot of hoops to create an undefeated champion versus undefeated champion scenario. You've got to almost, pick and choose opponents for fighters, even if they're world class. God forbid they get beat, and then all of a sudden you lose the opportunity to promote an O versus O fight of a super style matchup. Got other fights that are good fights that won't get made because the champion is undefeated. You might have a terrific fighter that has one loss, and now you got this champion with an O on his record, and he's got to avoid it because we're looking to create the fight against the O of another champion. And so in order to do that, we may not be able to fight this super threat that's in the weight class who may have a loss or two, because we're trying to chase that over its O super style matchup. We've seen a lot of this through the years, ever since Ali Frazier, and a lot of times it prevents really good fights from happening. Guys trying to protect their O, and people blame the fighters, but I blame the media more than the fighters, guys. I mean, if the media wasn't so adamant about this, yes, the networks first, because the networks are the ones that put the fights on, right? But if the media wouldn't follow suit, the networks wouldn't do it. Yeah, the funny thing about it is the media are actually so stupid that they actually have the audacity to complain about this when they're a big part of the reason why this happens to begin with, because they're the ones who are creating pound for pound lists with guys that have no losses at the top of it. They're the ones that are automatically writing articles, writing guys off as soon as they get beat. They are the ones who basically hold the cards in the fashion of how are we going to view fighters, how are we going to view matchups as they come along, right? So you can complain all you want, but fighters follow suit because fighters don't want to be written off by the public, by the media has the influence. Many fans, they may have a boxing knowledge, but they're very influenced by the media. Let's face it, boxing fans will read boxing websites. Boxing fans will listen to boxing news online, videos and whatnot. Boxing fans will look at the rankings that are put out by the networks and by big boxing publications such as ESPN or Ring Magazine. Boxing fans will do that. So regardless of if I say that you guys don't know anything or anybody else, you guys still have the influence over the fans. Even the fans may complain, but yet they'll still watch. So subtly, they're still being influenced. They're still looking at these things. So you create almost a mindset where you create and even fans end up jumping on this, honestly. If I had a dime for every fan argument that I've seen where said the favorite fighter shouldn't fight this other fighter because he doesn't bring money to the table. Bro, what are you doing counting other people's money? You're the fan. You should want to see the best fighting the best. I love the excuse where the Canelo or any of the other top guys shouldn't fight Demetrius Andre because what does Demetrius Andre bring to the table? Demetrius Andre brings you a very good fight to the table, you morons. That's what he brings to the table. At this point, I feel he's past his prime. But in his prime, Demetrius Hopkins, wow, I took you way back with that one. Demetrius Andre, he brings a threat to the table. He brings a very good fight to the table, a world-class matchup against any world-class fighter at that time to the table. He's bringing your entertainment to the damn table. And you guys are sitting there going, oh, well, he doesn't bring enough money to the table. Canelo fought Yavni Yildirim because the WBC mandated it, but he wouldn't fight Demetrius Andre because nobody know who you are. I know, guys. That's the excuses the fighters got to use if they don't want to make a matchup, or the promoters don't want to use if they don't want to make a matchup. That's not the excuses the fans need to use, okay? Even if you're a fan of a certain fighter, you should want to see him fighting the best fighters because your entertainment is what the bottom line is. Not your favorite fighter winning against lesser opposition or chosen opposition or whatnot. Listen, it's always you're playing chess a little bit even outside the ring. I get that. Some of it, obviously, you need to manipulate situations carefully. You do need that as well, okay? You can't. Not everybody can be Ali who just fought everybody, regardless of what prime they were in, regardless of anything. That guy is the only guy in history that fought everybody in his era, fought them when they were at their best, and then when he moved on to another era, he started fighting those guys too. Like he was fighting the best guys of the pre-exile era. Then post-exile era, now you don't know if he's the best anymore. He fought those guys too. Frazier, Foreman, Norton. He even fought Holmes at the end. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't make them like that anymore, okay? I'm not saying you have to be like that every single time, but also, if you start to go based off of the Ali Frazier one fight, everybody's trying to recopy that. Everybody's trying to be part of of something like that all over again. You can't recreate Ali Frazier one, guys. It's impossible. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just gotta have to create the next best scenario in boxing, and the only way you do that is creating the great matchups. You know, Gotti Ward is a rivalry that people will always remember remember it finally because of the entertainment it gave the fans. You know, that's what it's about. You guys should be demanding the entertaining fights, the best matchups, regardless of if your favorite fighter might lose the fight. It doesn't matter, bro. You know what I mean? You're not getting paid extra money when your favorite fighter wins a fight, guys. But you're feeling a lot better about yourself when you watch a really good fight on TV, and you're like, wow, man, you have some great talking points with your fellow fight fans and with your fellow fight fans that are friends, and just in general, you know what I mean? Like, that's what it's about. When you say something's about the fans, it's not about the fan favorite always winning. It's about the fights that the boxing gives you are always the most entertaining high-level fights. You shouldn't have to overly wait. I get sometimes you got to let a fight marinate. I get that. But how much do you make it marinate? That's another thing about Ali Frazier. It marinated because on accident. It marinated on accident, yet it marinated. So now everybody wants to marinate big fights. That fight marinated because Ali was in exile. Meantime, Frazier's building a huge momentum build. He's winning titles. He's knocking guys out. He's looking great. That fight marinated by accident. But now all of a sudden, you got the situation where everybody's trying to marinate the fight too. On top of trying to recreate the O versus O, champion versus champion, you've also got promoters and networks trying to marinate the fights in general, make it bigger and bigger and bigger. A lot of times, by the time you get that fight, like a Mayweather-Pacquiao situation, it's not even a good fight anymore. Guys made so much money, they're not going to put themselves at risk. De La Hoya Trinidad, unfortunately, was a dud. I thought they fought in their prime ages. They did let it marinate. I thought that fight might have marinated just right, where they were still in their prime when they fought. And unfortunately became a dud. And unfortunately, more than that, you didn't even get a rematch for that fight, which was ridiculous, you know. But that one disappointed for its own right. But ultimately, that's my bottom line, man. You know, I believe that Ali Frazier 1 was a fight that ruined boxing. It's a fight that we can all look back on fondly, even if you weren't born yet, like myself. If you've seen the fight, it's a great fight, but. And it did a lot for the time. It brought the eyes of the world onto boxing, but ultimately, you've got promoters and networks that took the wrong approach after it. You've got promoters and networks trying to recreate that all over again, and at times you kind of had it. I mean, Leonard ended up losing to Duran, and when you made that fight, they were trying to marinate that fight. I remember seeing a video where Leonard was still trying to kind of hopscotch around Hearns, where they were asking him about the fight, and he said, I'll fight Hearns when he gets the notoriety and popularity of Roberto Duran. Because at that point, Duran had beaten Leonard, right? So he had already beaten him. The O was gone already. But Leonard was sort of picking up momentum again. But you know what? That fight still happened. Leonard still made it happen. Hearns still made it happen. After he gives that quote, that fight happens maybe a year later, if that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the guys still fought each other at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like these networks and promoters are taking priority. And I know, I've heard recently people saying, oh, well, if the fighters really want to make it, don't make it happen. It's not that easy, guys. Fighters are under contracts to promoters. Promoters are under contracts to networks. And there's sort of a pecking order here where, you have to sort of follow the money trail. And sometimes things don't happen because of that reason. But the entertainment side of boxing ends up suffering. And I don't want to hear, sometimes in MMA they say, oh, you got MMA fans or even boxing fans try to have the argument where MMA makes the fights happen. No, bro. Boxing could do the same thing MMA could do, bro. We could have a top-ranked league, a PBC league, and a matchroom league, and none of the fighters fight each other. That's what MMA does. MMA has a UFC, a Bellator, a ONE, a PFL, and none of the fighters fight each other. You know what I mean? And you're not even and MMA fans are so stupid, they don't even demand that they do fight each other. They're just okay with it, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? So no. The MMA style brand is not the way to do it unless everybody is in on the package and everybody can fight each other from all brands. Because boxing could just as easily do that, but it doesn't. Boxing at least gives you the option for cross-promotional fights. Because boxing could just as easily make a top-ranked league, a matchroom league, and a PBC league, to name the biggest promoters on the map right now of the moment, right? Because sometimes they do change. And boxing can just as easily do that. And to a degree, it does do that. But sometimes you still get the crossover matchups. You do get those guys. And sometimes you even get the guys who fall off a little bit and become free agents from any of these networks, and suddenly they wind up fighting fighters from another network, right? So So you still get these kind of matchups there, and you even get them sometimes in their prime, and they wind up being good fights. And MMA, you have no shot at getting them because the contracts lock them up under separate entities. So no, I don't think the MMA style branding model is the be-all end-all solution. I think a variation of that, if you don't have a pig at the top like Dana White, who's underpaying the fighters, might work, but you still need to have the best guys under that league. And it's hard to do that when you have competing leagues also doing exclusive deals with fighters. End of the day, that's my take, guys. Let me know what you think of for the fight that ruined boxing. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your take. If you agree, listen, I get it if you guys start to say like really bad fights, like the ones I mentioned at the top of this video, like Lennox Lewis and Holyfield, terrible decision, or Pacquiao Mayweather Pacquiao, terrible fight, or De La Hoya Trinidad, a dud that even though you had two greats fighting in their prime, didn't live up to the hype. I get any of these might be the one that you might think supersedes this one, and I get that, and I fully acknowledge that the fight, Ali Frazier won. The fight was a terrific fight, and it's a fight that brought a lot of great eyeballs to the sport of boxing. But ultimately, because of the way boxing moved forward after that, something changed. The style of the way the sport was promoted, the style of the way the sport was viewed, it started to a subtle shift happen. It didn't go make a 180 degree turn all at once, obviously, but slowly but surely after that, it started to shift over. You started to see, to this day, you still have people focusing on the overs. Oh, the media, the fans, and because of that, the fighters automatically inherit this because they're scared to lose that. And automatically the shift changed, and it started to create a style, a model, a business model that doesn't always give us the best fights of the generation. Let me know what you think of this subject matter. Let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe. This is Paulie Malignaggi for Paulie TV.